are not really friendly with Mike.
Wait, what was that?
I said, I think that's why those kids are not really friendly with Mike. Michael or Sean.
Oh, Sean and Summer.
Yeah,
Right.
you know, Summer wants nothing to do with him, and Sean sees him once in a while, but not very often. Well, these are not for publication, I just,
No.
you know.
Do because what? So you think that's? I mean, there seems to be a genetic.
Oh, there definitely is. Both my parents were alcoholics. Period. You know, so I had a 50-50 chance of being in. I mean, there, but for the grace of God, go I, because I could, and you know, we always had for a while. We had Gordon and I always had a glass of wine for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to have with dinner, and when I used to, and then I started thinking, it's only going to be half an hour till I can have a glass of wine and everything. I thought, that's enough. That's it. And I stopped immediately.
Uh-huh.
But, and I just, you know, I have one when I go out, and that's it. Once in a while. I don't even do that all the time.
Right.
But it's a very definite genetic.
So you think, like, within the family, there's
Oh, definitely.
whatever,
A tendency.
either psychological or genetic predisposition.
Absolutely. No
for-
question about it.
Uh-huh.
No question about it.
And do you think that was part of? Well, I don't know, just kind of like an atmosphere. I mean, did that like kind of change things? You think for how people
Well-
dealt with each other, or?
Oh, no question about it. I couldn't stand my uncle Bob, because he was another alcoholic, and he never worked after the Second World War because he wasn't able to. He was gassed, but he was the nastiest person. And you know, I was a young kid in junior high school, and I couldn't stand him because he was so mean remarks, and he was. To Greg, he was horrible. He was just horrible.
Wow. And so, how do you think Greg dealt with it?
Oh, Greg didn't. He just left. He went. He went away.
Didn't he go down to Vancouver?
Yeah.
Or,
Mhm.
Right.
They had, when Greg died, they had, and he had built them himself 100 units that he was getting rents off of.
Wow.
She's well set up, you know.
That's quite a empire.
Absolutely, absolutely. She sold 50 of them. I don't know if she sold the rest because she was going to, you know.
Wait, is that Sue's
Yep.
parents, right?
Sue's
dad.
No.
Or Sue's.
Greg, her husband's father. Greg was my cousin.
Greg's your cousin, and
Sue
Sue's
is
his
wife.
His wife? Oh wait.
Yeah.
No, Mary's their daughter, right? Who's the
No,
one
they
who
don't
came
have
down?
the daughter. They have Michael. They have Michael, who is blind and retarded.
Okay.
And they had another child that died in the river.
Who was it that came down? Who was the nurse?
Mary.
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 How does Mary fit into?
Mary is Ann Hovey's, Nora Hovey's. That's her grandmother. Her mother was Margaret, who used to come down here
Okay.
and visit. She was my cousin.
I never remember Margaret. That was before my time.
Okay,
Right?
you
I
know,
mean,
you were here.
I remember Viola, but that's it.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
Patricia.
Yeah.
And do you ever? I mean, is there? It seems like there's a pretty distinct like cut from like going back there. Like so, like when you went back with Terry and Darcy and Mike, and kind of found that it was like whatever you'd grown out of it, or
I had
seemed
no
like
interest in the things that they had interest in. We were just totally different people, you know.
Right.
From I was I was just not. We didn't have any interest at all.
Right.
You know.
But was there like parts of the family that were more, say, broader and urbane that were in Seattle?
Oh, well,
and
my,
stuff,
no, the family wasn't in Seattle. Mary.
Right, but I mean, was there some of them that moved there? You would think that some you're in proximity to.
No,
Other
Mary
areas.
and her mother lived there, and that's why Mary is there. That's the only reason. Everybody stayed around Chehalis, around in that area, you know.
Right.
I had an
So people didn't really travel in
No,
general. People
no.
didn't really break off.
no, they didn't.
Is that a good sign? Is it like,
Well, I
well,
don't
is that
know.
nice of a place?
See, now the reason Margaret left, Mary's mother, is because she was a teacher. She wanted to, I don't know, she wanted to leave. They lived out on a ranch that was in the middle of nowhere. I mean, way in the middle of the prairie. I remember going there, you know. But when she was so much older than I that I really didn't know her, you know. Anyway, she was a teacher, and she went to Alaska to teach. She had a contract to go there, and that's why. And then her husband died in Alaska, and they had to take a seaplane, you know, to bring his body out to Seattle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a very strange deal.
Huh.
But
Yeah, that's so like something happened really very suddenly, or what? What was?
well, yes, he was an engineer or something like that, working in the inner part of Alaska, and she taught up there, and they got married, and he took a physical exam to join the service because he was drafted or something. You know, it was during the Second World War, and he took it and he passed the physical. He died a couple of days later.
Really?
Yeah, in the interior of Alaska, and they had to take a plane and bring his body out
Jeez.
with her. You know, so
That's.
so she came back to Seattle, and that's where she lived.
Uh huh.
And then she married again, and she married Mary's mother, Mary's father. And it was really funny because here you talk about here. Mary was going to, I don't know how she ever got started in it, but she started in genealogy or finding out more about her father because her mother would never tell her. She intimated that her father had been married before, but she would never tell Mary. And this was after she died. So Mary looked into it herself, and she got the records. And apparently the city records or the telephone records or something, anyway, the city records show an address, and then they say the man's name, the head of household, his wife, and then who the children.
Right.
So her father showed up there as having been married before, not only once but twice.
Huh.
So
based on like city directories here.
yeah, that type of thing. I don't know what that is for. Anyway, I must.
Well, city directories are good for, you know.
Oh, I know
There's
what
like,
this is. Yeah.
you know, there's ones here on Roseanne's side that shows the addresses of where her
Yeah.
grandparents lived, and
Yeah.
and she was
It's
trying
amazing.
to remember, and it's really, you know, I guess they're public.
They're public. They're public.
Yeah, it's like a phone book, but it's like better than a phone book.
Right. Anyway, then she found out that her father had lived in, and they followed him back. You know, she followed him back through telephone directories, and followed him back. And he had been married twice before, and she has a couple of half brothers.
Right.
You know, so she got in touch with, and apparently the brothers wanted nothing to. They didn't make any effort to contact her, but one of the wives, was interested in contacting her.
Right.
So she met them. They live in Wisconsin or Minnesota, someplace like that. You know, but she's in contact with them.
Yeah.
Very casually, you know. But
Well, it's not like you have to do like a big family reunion or
no,
anything.
when I found this out about Shirley, and I still have addresses for her.
Shirley being your half
My
sister.
half sister. She lives in Tacoma. She's been a teacher for many years. She's written some books, instruction books on home ec and so forth and so on, you know. She has quite a history. She has 2 children, 2 boys who graduated from the University of Washington that live up there. I don't know where they live. But, and when she said, I want you to contact, you know, obviously this friend that found all this information. She said, well, now you can contact him. And I thought about it. And at the time I was 80 and she was 69 or something like that. I don't know if she even knows about me, number one. Number two, I don't know if I want to start getting involved because I was too old to be traveling around and blah, 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 and I didn't know. So I just let it go. I never did contact her.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's a way to. It's not like this kind of all-in game. Like,
No,
hey, I'm
I
gonna
know.
come over for cookies.
I
you
know,
know,
I know.
You can
And
just say,
there's-
hey, I just wanted to say hi, and
Yeah.
I'm out here, and just leave
Yeah.
it at that.
And the phone numbers, I know the addresses are probably good, but the phone numbers were no good because I did try them. And the number that they give out on all this information on the thing usually is long gone, you know. So I never was able to contact her, so I kind of gave up.
Well, you could always do just a simple Google search. I bet you could find it pretty quickly
No,
if you wanted.
I'm not sure because I think maybe that's what I did and they were old phone
Oh, right.
numbers. I don't know. I can't remember.
Right.
But anyway,
Well,
can you pass me mine? I knew I hadn't drunk all of this. This is yours.
yeah. Here, take that.
Okay.
And I'll give you.
Do you want
this.
yours?
No, that's just
Okay.
nice. So who else? Sorry, I can't see it. Oh, it went dark. I'm going to open this up to. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, for a little while, not too much longer.
Here, let me see if there's stuff I totally forgot about, like Russell.
Yeah,
All kinds of.
I know. I don't
kinds
know
of stuff.
anything about him. All I know was he was a good diver. Remember?
Yeah. No, he was super nice to me.
Yeah,
I
he
liked
was good.
him. So let's see. So your side. So on the Boomer side, I mean, you didn't really know
I didn't
that
know
family
anybody.
at all, right?
I didn't know them at all.
Right.
No.
But they were from the same town, or were they?
I thought they were, but I understand it was from Centralia, which was 4 miles away.
4 miles away.
And his mother was in
There was like a
Oregon.
Michigan connection there. I think
yeah.
she came
I was
from
amazed. Michigan.
Champion, Marquette, Michigan.
Yeah.
And they came out, and there was a whole, and then Jacob Henry, that's his dad.
Uh-huh.
But she looks like you to me.
Really?
What
Well,
a-
now she's the one that died. No, she's not his mother.
Oh, really?
No, because she died in 1919.
Oh, I suppose that makes sense.
Oh, she
huh?
could be.
But see, she kind of looks like you, though. I thought. Roseanne differed with me, but I thought she kind of looks like you. So here's their family.
See, they lived in Centralia, which was another twin towns, they call them. You know.
Uh-huh. So that's her there.
Oh, really?
That's
yeah.
Well, maybe that's not his mother then. So basically, this is 1899.
Her 11 silver. My God.
So that's Emma Wivel there, or Wyville. Or,
That's her mother.
And Stanaway. And so that's the husband. That's,
Good
I
Lord.
think it's William Stanaway. I forget who no, maybe the husband. Maybe that's one of the older sons.
Now, here's another thing. You asked me the difference between families now and families then. Families were larger then.
Oh, yeah.
And they took care of each other. And they stayed close. I think they stayed closer than they do now.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Well, it's probably more more separation. When you moved away, you really moved away and couldn't get back or call back,
That's
and
right.
that was kind of
That's
a bigger
true. That's very true.
commitment of separation.
Well, and I don't know, they seem to take care of each other more, you know. I mean, there was always a job for so and so and so and so and so, you know.
Well, also the towns are smaller. I mean, you're
Uh-huh.
everybody's more mutually reliant. You know, which is that's good and bad, right? You lose some
Right.
maybe some
You
freedom
lose,
because you
you
feel
lose
like
some individuality, you know. But I was embarrassed, well, because my mother was an alcoholic, I was embarrassed. Everybody in the town knew it, you know. And she was a working alcoholic. She could work, and yet on the weekends, you know, she was totally drunk.
So, do you think that kind of changed how you felt about yourself within that community, or
Well,
like,
of course, because I couldn't bring people home. I couldn't have friends home, you know, or anything like that.
uh-huh. And so did that? I mean, do you think that just changed your outlook in general, like how you?
To a certain extent, yes. I was very, very naive, Scott. And when I was about 14, somewhere around there, I was staying at a friend's house. I was staying at my cousin's house for overnight. And I went home, and I found my mother in bed with somebody. I was maybe 12, 13. I packed a bag and I said, I'm leaving. And I did. I wouldn't stay there. And I went down and stayed with Greg's, his mother and dad. I'm the one I couldn't stand. But his wife was really, really sweet, really a good person. And I stayed there, and I stayed with my relatives for I don't know how long, several weeks. And finally, somebody told me, you got to go home, and I had to go home because they wouldn't keep me, you know.
Right. So did stuff like that, like, I mean, did it seem like you were maybe the adult in the family with like kind of what your situation
well,
was?
and when I lived in Van Nuys, I don't know how my mother knew, but she knew some of the people worked in the movie industry. And I remember going to she took me, and I was probably 16, to a party. It was a barbecue outside, but they were all adults, and I was just a kid. I mean, I was so naive, it was pathetic. And then she said, well, I'm going to go off with so-and-so, you know, I dragged her home. You know, and I felt like I was the adult, you know. I had no respect for her, never had any respect for her, Scott, because she was a very smart woman. She had three different college businesses, and yet she wasted everything, you know.
Right.
To me, she wasted stuff.
And so when you came back from Alaska with Terry and Mike and Darcy, right, and you went back to San Diego, did she move?
Oh,
was she in San Diego, or where was she at?
Well, I'll tell you, anytime, no matter where I was or what I was doing, she always followed me and got another place. Never lived with me, but she got another place, and she made my life, to me, she made my life miserable. For instance, I would tell you know, the kids, you can't do this. She would say, you can do it if you want to, right in front of me.
Wow.
And so we had many fights, you know. And when we lived down here, she didn't drive, because she'd had an accident when she was in college, and she just got out of the car and never drove again. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know.
Well, about her.
Holidays, I always went up to Los Angeles where she lived, and I can't remember a time. And here I had the three kids in the car. I can't remember a time when didn't have to pick those kids up out of bed and put them in the car and drive home in the middle of the night because she was so smashed. And I did not want the kids to see her like that.
Right.
You know, I've seen her so bad that she was supposed to get up and go meet and take a flight someplace, and she couldn't raise her head off the pillow. And I just had no respect, you know.
Right. Huh.
It's not a pleasant life for a kid to have an alcoholic parent.
Right. Well, it sounds like you had 4 kids almost.
Well,
Sounds like
you know. And then
5, I should
then when I finally moved down here, when Cork and I were married, she had an apartment up in La Mesa, and she would call me when she was drunk, and you know, just make my life miserable, just miserable. I mean, I probably made myself miserable by listening to her, you know, but she never quit. She never quit drinking.
interesting. And so does that, I mean,
It affected me. There's no question about it.
yeah, I'm sure the you know, the kids and everybody else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume.
We went to Mexico one time, and Michael and Darcy were, 11 and 12, and you were a baby. And we lived up there in El Cajon, you know. And so she came to stay there for a week. We went to Mexico, came back, and I came back one day early. And she was drunk, number one. And Darcy said, well, we got to find the bottles. And there were bottles all over. She had stashed them underneath hedges, you know, stuff like that. And I felt so badly because I had left the kids with her. You know, I never dreamed that they were going to have to take care of you instead of her.
Oh, right.
You know, so that was the only time.
Wow.
It wasn't pleasant.
No. And then, so then she died in La Mesa, right?
Yes.
Or somewhere around there?
Yes, she did.
And that was what, like mid-60s? That was after I was born, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
you
like
were
a
about
couple
2.
years?
Yeah, I think you were 2.
Right.
I have all her death certificate and everything. And Patricia tried to talk to me, and she said, Janet, you know, holding the grudge or holding the way you feel doesn't do you any good. And I've tried to get rid of it, but I just can't. I just can't.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just tough to accept that they are who they are, and you know, whatever, they impose their thing on you, but you're moving beyond it.
But she just made everything miserable. And no matter where I moved, if I moved to another city, she moved there too.
Right.
Which didn't help things, you know.
Huh. And then, so you met my dad at work, right? At Convair?
Right.
And then...
General Dynamics.
So, right.
Yeah. Astronautics.
So he was all part of that, you know, it seemed to be a bunch of people like Lars and Jim Duback.
That's
and
right.
Bill
and I was the only woman in there, in the bunch of them, that used to play bridge and everything, and we used to go out, too, on Friday nights.
Right. And was that, I mean, how did you guys get along? Did you get along all right, or was that kind of
I think
like a roller coaster?
I think here again, he's a really good person. There's no question about that. But here again, here was somebody with no ambition whatsoever, you know. And I don't know. I don't know. We just didn't fit together. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And finally one time when he was gone on the trip, you were about 5 or 6. And I said, well, your dad's going to come home tomorrow. You said, so what? I don't care. And I thought, man, if you don't care, why should I? You know? So, and it was a strange situation because we were divorced, and 2 years later I met some people that, or a guy that I knew from there, you know, and he still thought we were married. Cork thought, just told every, when he would go to a party or something, he would just say I was sick, and he never told anybody that that we were divorced.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was weird, very strange.
Huh.
But I was.
Well, maybe thought you were getting back together or something. Who
No,
knows?
no. But it just didn't work out.
Well, you're very different people, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of surprising to.
No question about it. Well, you got to remember something. I was somebody with 3 children. Terry had moved with his dad. Somebody with 3 children. Didn't know if I was going to have a job. And I was living paycheck to paycheck, and I was making it, but that frightens women too, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't know, you can't not take care of your children, you know? And I think that had something to do with it also.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it seems like you both found better, more appropriate people
Oh yeah,
for you.
I'm sure, you know?
Is there but you guys get along all right? I mean, everything,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, is pretty,
we did, you
seem
know?
pretty civil relative
Oh
to
yeah,
how things
yeah,
can
oh
be.
yes, we got along pretty civil.
And then, so then, you know, with Michael and Darcy, I mean, they seem, and Terry, basically everybody, you know, there's ups and downs with kids and
Oh yeah.
kind of
Oh, yeah.
everything that goes along with that.
I
right?
don't
mean,
know. It's funny how children in the same household. Darcy was obsessed with money, and so was Terry.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, do you think that it's because they didn't have any, or was there like a?
But
you
why?
know,
Why in the same household? You know, and she used to tell Chelsea, "Well, when your mother when my mother dies, we'll be in good shape. Good, you know." That she has a lot of money. I think she had thought we had a lot more money than what I had, you know.
Right.
And Terry, what he did to Anne was pretty crappy. You know, he did some pretty crappy things to Anne. Anne really took care of him when she was up there, and he really resented that she had left some things to Darcy rather than him. You know.
Well, that seems kind of almost gold.
Oh, he bought.
Gold diggerish, you know.
Absolutely. She bought him his SUV or whatever the truck he had up there. They bought it for him. Skeets and she bought it for him and so forth. And when she died, or when she was close to dying, she wanted nothing to do with him, and he wouldn't believe it. She didn't even want him on the property.
Wow.
It was really strange.
Huh. Was it surrounding that, about supporting him and him not being thankful?
No, I
or
don't
what was
know. I don't know what it was. I wasn't there long enough to really know.
Yeah.
And Michael won't talk about it.
Well, I'm sure there's something went on there. Is Skeet still alive?
Oh no, he died when she was married to him. Skeets?
He died before her.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh
It
yes.
was a while. And so, why do you think Terry moved up there? I mean, it's cheaper, I suppose, but it seems like very isolated. Like the whole thing up there.
It's been speculated by almost everybody that knew him that he died. He went up there to take advantage of her.
Of Anne?
Yep.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That seems like a
She
strange.
put the down payment on his house. She did everything for him.
Uh-huh.
And he would, and she didn't realize what he was doing. He needed shoes because of the
Yes, feet
The
and
diabetes.
and, uh-huh.
that were very soft inside, and they were orthopedic type things. They came about $600 a pair, and I had sent him quite a bit of money and sent him money for that. He went over to Ann and said, I need, and Ann and I discussed this later because Ann told me. He went over to Ann and said, I need these, but I don't have the money. So she gave him money too.
Right.
You know, now to me that's just, you
Huh.
know,
That seems pretty manipulative.
yeah, very. He was very manipulative, but so was Darcy.
Yeah, Darcy. I mean, whatever. My relationships to them, like, I mean,
It's a totally
Darcy, I could see being, you know, I'd have. Well, maybe it's just because I'm closer to her, but I mean, I could see her being a little bit more, whatever, manipulative than Terry. But I was never all that close
Well,
to
I
Terry.
I never realized he was like that until people started saying, why did he go up there? You know, why did he? The only one he knew was Anne.
Mm-hmm. So she and not Chellan. What is it? Chellan? What was the town they were in there?
Pardon?
What was the town they were outside?
Wenatchee.
Wenatchee. Right,
Mhm.
right.
And she was very good-hearted, too much so. Everybody that she knew owed her money.
Mm-hmm.
So it was,
Well, so is it, you think, is also like a more familiar place than being down here in San Diego, or?
well, I don't know. Her attorney took advantage of her. Everybody that she did business with took advantage of her.
So how is Anne related? I mean, what?
Anne is Rena's sister or daughter.
Oh, okay.
So she was my cousin.
So I didn't go back down that direction. So she's your cousin, first cousin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of your mom's oldest sister.
Right.
And so you
So
knew
she
each
and my
other
mother,
since you
she and my
were
mother
born,
were
basically.
raised together. See,
Right.
because my aunt raised my mother also.
So what age difference you think was there between your
I'm
mom
not really
and her?
sure. I've never looked into that.
Were they pretty close?
I've never looked into that. They were pretty close, yeah. My mother was pretty close to both of Rena's daughters, Dorothy, who was Ambelina and had her name changed, and Dot and Ann. All of those, there were 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls, you know, and they were very close until, it's funny, Rena had her husband, her second husband, Olaf Jacobson, was not the father of her children. When she was married to Anton Hillock, and he used to go hunting out on the property. See, 360 acres. They used to shoot pheasant and stuff all the time.
So this is all out in Wenatchee side of the Cascades, or
No,
they're all
this
around
was
Chellan?
this was in Chehalis, out of
Chehalis,
Chehalis. Okay. And in the wilds outside of Chehalis, you know, not right in the city. But he took his 4-year-old son with him, and his son came back and said, my dad is lying on what had happened, and they don't really know because he couldn't tell them. He went through a barbed wire fence. Well, you know, you have to lift him up and lift him down, and they don't know whether Tony, his son, pulled the trigger and killed him by accident, or whether they don't know what happened. They don't know what happened, but he was dead. He died.
Holy cow.
Oh, yeah. So, anyway, the property was not in the children's name. So, no, I guess it was in trust in the children's name because the children's names were on it. But when my Aunt Rena, many years later, sold the property Two of them wanted to sell it, and two of them did not want to sell it and wouldn't sign. And they didn't speak to each other for 2 years, 2 or 3 years over that, because there was a big argument over whether the property was going to be sold or what, you know.
Right.
Oh yeah,
And so what happened? Did they,
sure.
one of them buy them out, or how did they sort
No,
that out?
they sold it eventually,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what the situation was, but I just know that they didn't speak because of that for years.
Wow. And so those are Rena's kids, right?
Right.
And then, so do you ever,
Oh, they're all dead.
so they were all, like, so Anne was like, where within that? Was she like one of the older kids?
She was the old. No, she was. Yeah, she was the youngest.
She was the youngest, okay.
She had had. My Aunt Rena had 2 children prior to that, prior to the 4 that lived, because Francis and Robert, who died from I'm not sure what it was. It was a contagious disease, and they would not allow them to bury them in the cemetery at that time. So they were buried on the property.
Really?
Hmm.
Wow.
This was before my mother was born,
Right.
so this would be
Late
in the late
18.
1800s, you know.
Right.
So you don't know, the laws have changed. You know, one of the things that amazes me is that I have the letter that Obadiah, the older Obadiah,
Mm-hmm.
that his daughter Mary, she gave a lectures one time about her father, about them coming across the country,
Uh-huh.
you know, and they followed. Now this was 155. Now it's about 160 years ago that they came out on a covered wagon from Pennsylvania to Vancouver, and then they were taken up by canoe manned by Indians up the river to Chehalis.
So is Chehalis off the Columbia River?
No, it's
Or
not off the
what's-
Columbia. The
what's-
Columbia River runs between Washington and Oregon. They have
Right.
another one, and I can't remember which one it is.
But isn't-
They're very
I thought Vancouver is on the north side of
yes,
Columbia River,
yes,
right?
yes.
So there's
Anyway,
another fork that goes more north.
oh, there's no, not of the Columbia. They're called something else,
right,
and I
but
can't
some that
remember.
runs into the Columbia.
But they're big rivers, and they were taken by canoe, manned by Indians, up to Chehalis.
Mhm.
And that's where he had built. In Chehalis, there are two historical buildings of the McFadden's. One is being lived in presently, but it's not. It's a historical monument, and another one is in a park that is a historical monument. But what to think that in 160 years, it was only 160 years ago, that they came by covered wagon out here.
Right.
And now we have everything we have now. You know, it's amazing in that
Yeah.
length of time. It-
Oh yeah. I
the-
mean, within your life, you've seen
Oh, my
like
God, yes.
amazing
Oh,
changes
of
from.
course,
So like when you
absolutely.
were born, was there, you know, I mean, were cars widely used? I mean, I know there was cars, but I mean, was that like a common thing in Chehalis, or was it like more?
Well, not
Mhm.
real. I mean, yeah, there were cars, and there were more cars than there were. They didn't use horses on the streets, but people didn't know how to drive. My uncle had this old. I wish I had pictures of it. Old car, you know, and he would drive it, and then when he came to a crossroad, he would just put on his horn, and everybody better watch out, because he never stopped. I could remember that when I was a child. Yeah.
That's scary.
Oh yeah, but
And so, I mean, what was the? I mean,
all
like,
the
like
telephones.
back to your early memories. Yeah, was there electricity? Was that
Oh
common?
yes.
Was
Oh
there, like,
absolutely. There were still outhouses in a lot of houses. There weren't in our house, in my aunt's house, and I've never lived in a place that had outhouses. but I think Bill has.
Right. And so, but phones and stuff like that, did
Oh,
that
yeah.
start?
But they were
coming
all,
in? A centralized one.
they were all on a party line type thing,
Uh-huh.
so everybody heard everything you said,
Uh-huh.
every-
And so do, well, would it, I mean, you've seen a lot of progression of obviously technology.
oh,
I mean,
absolutely, absolutely.
I mean, you think it's better, or do you think it's, a distraction?
I think it's
in a way?
inevitable.
Well, yeah. But I mean, do you think the quality of life is better? Do you think people are better
Well, I'll
off?
tell you, computers were supposed to simplify your life, and they haven't at all.
Right.
They haven't simplified your life at all. And they were supposed to make work so much easier for people. That's not true. It's
Right.
not true at all. It's just made it more complicated,
True. Do so from Chehalis, were you? So you were you're closer to Olympia and whatnot, and than you were to say Vancouver to the south. So what
Oh
was?
yeah, oh yeah. It's 100 miles to Vancouver, and 100 miles to Seattle. Essentially the same,
Okay.
So it's about halfway.
Right. And there's historic stuff there, right? I mean, there's the house.
Oh, absolutely,
and
absolutely.
Did that kind of fill in? I mean, have you been back? When was the last time you were up in
Oh,
that area?
it's been years since I was up there,
Mm-hmm.
and I haven't seen him since I was a kid.
Right.
I'm sure.
And so, who was it? You were telling me about grandparents or somebody on one side that were like living in like kind of a log cabin.
Oh yes,
kind of thing.
that's Ambelina Hansen.
Oh yeah, the Hansons.
Okay, the Hansons. The only time I ever, and I was a kid, so I don't remember much, but the only time they lived in Unalaska, or a small Napavine, these small, they were either mining or logging. Most of them were logging camps, small logging camps, and they were very, very small towns, maybe 100 people, 200 people, just enough to have the loggers and so forth. But I visited them one time, and they must have been absolutely dirt poor, because there was I don't remember any furniture. It almost was like there was a dirt, and this is probably my imagination, a dirt floor, but it was just no electricity,
Right. I think they were from Norway.
I think they
if I
were.
remember.
It was either Norway or Sweden. I don't know
I
which
think it
one.
was Norway. Hang
Okay.
on, let me look on here. I'll get this picture out of the way here.
I knew it was one or the other.
So if I go back to, let's see here, back to my family tree. I don't know why this lady always just jumps out at me as looking like you, and I know
Sure.
she's probably the not even his mother, right?
Here.
So yeah, so if we look, let me put my glasses on here.
At her.
And so there's the Hansons over
Yeah.
on this side.
Right.
And so if we click on that, this is what's kind of nutty is how, okay, so the Hansons go here.
Yeah.
There's like Magnus,
Yes. Magnus.
Harriet, Harold,
Yes.
and
These,
Ambeline.
yeah. And see, I knew both of these. In fact, we lived
There's a
in a house
California
owned by her.
connection there. I think one of them was born in California. I think
I don't
Magnus
know.
was. And then but their parents were who you're talking about.
Yeah. But see, now I knew Harold. I knew him, and there was another one, Kyle. One that was called Kyle, and one of
really?
these, either he or he was called Kyle.
Okay.
Okay. No. Yeah. Right.
Because I think Magnus, I think it shows up as, it looked like there was like a foray into California.
Born in California, 1862. Wow.
And then she shows up just in
Born in California. Yeah. Born in Washington Territory. See,
Yeah.
That was before. So what about these? What about
So they
they
show
must
up
they
as
must have been from
Norway,
Norway.
and then
Yeah.
it kind of dies there once you
Uh-huh.
start going back into that.
Right. Both of them were born in Norway. Yeah.
1830. That was a bit ago.
Wow. You know,
Is there any
did
kind
you
of-
know that Lars was born in Norway?
Yeah. Wasn't he was
He
an
was
orphan, right?
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
he was adopted. I didn't know if you knew that.
Right.
thought
I
that
remember
was very
him telling me
interesting.
that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is there anybody that you remember that was like of Civil War era? Kind of like, that crossed over, that would be like kind of on the older side? That,
No.
You know?
No. Children, unless they're told something, I met a lot of people I knew that were probably cousins. A family named Gazelle there in Lewis County. And my Aunt Rena used to take me, and my uncle used to take me to visit them all the time and so forth. And I think there was some connection in some way, but I don't know how. Because, a kid never asks, and nobody ever says to a kid, this is your first cousin or something like that.
Right, it's just a person.
That's
I
right.
mean,
So I'm sure I met other people that were cousins and so forth. And at my Aunt Rena's, they had this large house, and they had a great big yard in the back with in the middle of a cherry tree in the middle of it. But they always had all of their holidays out there, and there would be at least 30 people each time.
wow, that's great.
For the 4th of July and picnics and things like that.
Right.
We always had that, and they
And-
were always at her house.
Do you think people were,
I'm sure
Br-
some.
broad strokes, but do you think people were more social back then, based on kind of how
Yes,
they had to interact?
yes, I do, because it was everybody. It was the grandmothers and the babies and everybody. It was the family. They were family things, and I think they don't do that now.
Right,
Everybody's too darn busy doing other things.
right,
They
Yeah,
don't have
it's-
time to sit and contemplate their navels,
right.
anything like that. Well, they don't.
No, it's probably pretty. People were more broader and rounder and had to deal with different people than themselves.
That's
more,
right.
more differences. In
That's
people.
right.
I
And
think
they-
that's part of.
And they
maybe-
weren't worried so much about society. I mean, what layer of society are you in, or blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Do you think people have is it that people buy into aspirations and stuff now that are maybe,
I think their
a
parents,
kind of pie in the
their
sky
parents
thing?
kind of force them into it.
Interesting.
Well, stop and think about it.
Yeah. Well, everybody has expectations for,
Right, right.
for their children to reach their potential,
I know.
but it's not all an efficiency contest of who gets the most out of their life, because
Sometimes
that
it
doesn't
is.
that doesn't necessarily.
A lot of
include-
times it is. Who's got
Right.
the most money?
Well,
you know.
I deal with that with the kids, but I waver between them doing their best and finding
Doing what they want to do.
what makes
Yeah.
them most happy.
Yeah,
And
right,
sometimes that's not the
I
same
think
thing.
you have done a marvelous job, Scott. I think
Oh.
you really have done a marvelous, marvelous job.
We'll see. They're doing all right. They're doing good. And that's mostly Roseanne, not me. So.
Well, you got to give
Honestly.
Roseanne a lot of credit because
Oh,
she's,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. But so, do you think? Mike and Darcy and Terry. They all had their kind of stuff to overcome in terms of being parents.
Absolutely. Well, I think everybody does.
Right.
And one of my favorite sayings is, you either sink or you swim. You either let it get you or you get it. Essentially.
Yeah.
Because everybody has I had alcoholic parents. I could have sat and said, well, my mother was an alcoholic, so I can't do anything, you know. And I've seen people do this,
Right.
you
Well,
know.
they let it define them, you know.
It's easy.
Well, I mean, it's part of who you are, but it's not all of who you are. So,
No, it
I mean,
isn't.
That's,
But some people let it be all who they are.
Yeah, well, there's also different degrees of it. You want me to get you some more of that? I mean, I think, you know, it seems like Mike and Darcy kind of had, you know, kind of mental things, I think, probably beyond, you know, I don't know if you want to call it bipolarity or something within that. I mean,
don't know.
different degrees of that. But
Yeah.
it seems like they had, like, those kinds of issues, right? I mean,
Michael is, and he still is a lot like when he was a child. When he was a child, he was the most kind youngster I've ever seen, ever. They put the retarded children back into the regular schools when he was in elementary school, and he was the only child that I knew of that made friends with these kids and took care of them and was really kind to them. You know, most kids are not like that. And he's always been kind, and yet he has a streak of meanness too, you know. But even now, if there is some, I can't tell you how many people he has taken in and taken care of.
right.
Now,
Yeah, from Dave to Fred, and, you know,
Yeah.
all kinds of people.
and Dave's brother,
Yeah, Fred. Yeah.
yeah, no, not Fred, the other brother, the older brother. He took in, he was
Dave's-
ill, and he didn't have any place to go.
Dave
and-
Richards? I didn't know he had an older
No,
brother.
no, oh yeah, not Dave Richards. Another one, Gordon's older brother.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Okay, anyway, and he took him in and took care of him when he had no place to go,
Right.
and
Well, they both seem to have, to me, I mean, I don't know Terry all that well, but I mean, it seemed Michael and Darcy seemed to have a certain amount of kind of, you know, mental. I mean, they were basically like geniuses, but then they would do these. I mean,
I know.
really, really intelligent, but they would
I
also do
know.
this very self-defeating
I know,
stuff regularly.
I know. Michael has really, he had such potential, and he said to me about a year ago, he said, you know, I'm sure sorry I ever quit college for marine biology. And I asked him, I said, isn't there any way you could go back, even at your age? No, I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, so he realizes, you know.
Right. But do you think do you think those traits are something, again, like, you know, genetic traits, or like...
I
you
don't know,
what
Michael
mean?
has always sabotaged himself.
Right.
You know, he always has. When he had a really, really important fishing trip he wanted to go on to one time, and he started about 2 weeks before it was planned, he started to get just nastier than heck, you know. And I warned him several times, you know, if you do this, you can't go on the trip. And he never stopped, and he never ended up going on the trip either. But he would do things like that to sabotage himself,
Huh.
you know, even when he was a child.
Interesting. So I mean, would you say those traits are, you know, partially, do you see generations before acting the same way, or do you think...
Well, my
like,
mother certainly did,
Uh-huh.
you know. My mother was what she did was certainly health. But you know,
I mean, do you think, is there any separating kind of the you know, alcoholic side of it from, say, like, just general demeanor? I mean, there's probably a time before one drinks alcohol where that kind of
I
personality
don't
trait
ever
shows
remember
up.
my mother without alcohol.
Right.
And it's hard for me. I know there must have been some good times, but I sure don't remember 'em. I remember one time, and that was all,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I I don't know. It's hard to know about people, you know.
Right. No, there's no right answer. I was
That's
just
true.
wondering
Oh,
if
I
it's
know.
like, oh, here's
I
how
know.
my family is.
Yeah,
Some people have that easy answer. And so, like,
Right.
yeah, my family's really X, Y, or Z, you know?
no. The ones that have been alcoholics, and Patricia was an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
but she started going to AA many years ago. And when she died, we did not publish anything in the paper because I didn't think anybody knew her, you know. And I sure heard about it from the people who were from AA,
Uh-huh.
you know, because she had a lot of friends down there. I didn't even know she was going to AA.
Huh. Yeah, I had no idea. Well, she actually wasn't very far from where I was, because I was over off of Boundary over there, kind of by
Mm-hmm.
Balboa Park.
Yeah.
And she was over by Ubis or something over
Yeah.
that way.
Something like that.
Yeah. I remember she would come out to the house a bunch
Yeah.
out in Poway. So who else is? Oh, this thing went dark. It keeps going to sleep on us for inactivity.
No.
This is good. We're. So do you remember Harold at all? Harold. So these were the guys that you.
No, I never knew them at all.
But you knew their kids, the Hansons. One of them
I
being
knew-
your mom
I
or your
knew-
grandma, right?
No, I knew her children. These are old names. There's a Harriet Hanson that was my mother's age, and a Harold Hanson and Magnus that were all my mother's age. So these are not them. They were children of those.
Oh, so they had kids named
Yeah.
the same. So
Yeah.
this is your grandma's generation.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
your mom's generation.
Yes.
Who else? Who else can we go into here? Zora E. Hanson. So yeah, the
Zora.
Hansons get really
Oh
wide. here.
yes,
So
I
those
know.
would be cousins
Zora,
of yours.
Zora, I knew.
So these are cousins of yours.
Yes,
And were these
Zora, I
people?
knew.
So that's your
Much
mom.
older. That's what?
That's your mom.
Yeah.
And then so these would be
Right.
second
Okay.
cousins, right?
Olava
Uh huh.
was. I knew her. I mean, I recognize the name. I don't remember her.
She
But
died in 1931. So.
Okay. But Harriet. Yeah, I knew her.
And were they all? So these are all Washington people,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah. All in Chehalis. Alana, I don't know
I think
her.
they showed up. I think the Ammons showed up or the Hansons, on Alaska.
There's Kyler. Yeah. He used to babysit me. I know him. Kyler.
Uh-huh.
And Zora was a friend of my mother's, and Kyler.
So there's another Viola there.
Yeah, I didn't know her that I know of.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So like at gatherings and stuff, would there be
Oh yeah.
a bunch of these?
Oh yeah.
Bunch of these
Oh
folks.
yeah. Oh yeah. At the barbecues or at the picnics. It weren't barbecues; they were picnics.
That would get big really fast, I would think.
Oh yes.
Because how many kids are there? There's like 8 or maybe 10 kids there.
But you know, it's
Right.
really interesting. My mother was one of 9 children. Okay. I have very few cousins for that. The family, that part of the family just kind of died out. Anne didn't have any children. Not one of Rena's kids had children.
Huh. Do you think by choice, or do you think it was like...
I don't think so. I don't know why. They just didn't have children.
That's
Viola-
odd, because you think...
Patricia never had any children,
Uh-huh.
you know.
But was Patricia married? Was she married?
She was married very briefly. Her husband, she was married when she was in college at UCLA, and he had a nervous breakdown, and she went home and she never went back to him. I think
Huh.
her mind was very colored by the fact that her father had been ill mentally, you know, and died in a hospital, Sawtell Veterans Hospital.
And so huh. I mean, that's just odd that there's so many,
I know.
there was so many, like,
Well, so
whatever,
many
so
of
many of
them-
the generation, and so few had kids.
Right, right. My mother had just me.
Because the generation before is it's just mushrooms, like
I know,
crazy.
I know, but not my generation. I had two cousins. I have Margaret, which was one of my cousins, and Bob, Uncle Bob had two children, Peggy and Greg. And Peggy died very strangely. She was about 36, 38, and she worked for some business, and she went to the post office and didn't come back. And they found her in her car, sitting in her car, and she had had a heart attack and died.
Wow.
Yeah, she was younger. I don't know, maybe she was 40, I'm not really sure. I'd have to look.
That's kind of random.
Yeah, it was very strange.
So wait, that shows up under, hang on here, that's on the McFadden side, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, so there's Viola, and there's Patricia, there.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird to do this from over here. And who was that you were talking about? Which?
Bob.
Oh,
Here.
so it's Bob's kid.
Yeah. There's two. There's Greg and there's Peggy.
Yeah. See, there's still a whole bunch of hints.
Oh, of course.
I mean, that's how you start
course.
fleshing all this stuff
Yeah,
out.
right.
But I was trying to go more
Right.
laterally up,
Yeah,
up
I
the ladder.
understand. And he had the three. I mean, she had the three, and both of the boys died.
She went by Kate, or that's Catherine?
Kate, yeah. Mm-hmm. So she had three children. She had Catherine, who is still alive, and the twins, which were Robert and David.
And where's Catherine at, you think?
Catherine, she lives in Vancouver.
Vancouver, Washington,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Who's Dara?
I've never heard.
Sandon.
Who are these people? I don't know who
So
this.
that's Judith's husband. Or
Okay,
sorry, Judith
yeah, all right.
McFadden married
All right.
Alvin Sandon.
Right. He was from Canada.
Right. Yeah, I think he's French Canadian. I think,
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
So that's their kid there.
They
So
didn't have one. She didn't have a child.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh. Huh. And so is she still? No, she's not still alive. 1897. What are you looking for?
I'm looking for that little case,
Oh, the little silver pill case?
silver case. Where is it?
Could be over here.
Should be. It better not be gone, I'll tell you.
No, it's somewhere. It's probably just tucked behind something. It could be over here. Oh yeah, there's the engravings on it. Here it is.
Yeah, that one. That was given to him by his parents when he went to war in Canada.
So who was that given to?
Her husband. What did I do with my
Were you looking for glasses?
glasses? Yeah. Let me see. George and Anne Fletcher, presented by to Joseph Fletcher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And who are those?
She was
within the
she was
family?
married to. That's her. That's what she died as. That was her second husband.
Oh, that was Judith.
Mm-hmm. Pat. Her name is. Yeah.
Well, she went by Pat.
Yeah.
So that's her.
That's Pat.
Well,
And then she married him.
So that was her first husband.
That was
Was
that was her,
Fletcher.
yeah. No, I think she. This is her second husband.
Right.
So her first husband was not there. Dara Singden. I never heard of her at all. I don't even know who she is. But they just died out.
Uh-huh.
Pat didn't have any children.
Yeah, that generation goes from really wide to like 2 kids.
That's right. Well, no.
Well, no, one.
No,
but there's
there's-
Patricia. I mean,
And
there's
there's
a few in
me, and there's two other ones. You know,
there. Oh, those are Hansons over there. That's the Hanson
Yeah.
side. But say
this side, see.
on this side, there's
Yeah.
Margaret.
But she had 4 children, and none of them had children.
Wait, meaning Rena.
Rena,
Uh-huh.
none of them had children. Benjamin didn't. I don't know. He left home before I was ever born. So I
Looks
don't
like
know.
he could have died during World War One, possibly.
Yeah, it does. Well, 1919.
1919? It's a
1919.
little later than that.
2 of them. But
Uh-huh. Well, there was also a pandemic flu that happened at that point.
That's
in
right.
time, right?
my mother was in the University of Washington Infirmary with flu. That flu.
Right.
Yeah, and
They said that killed more people than the war.
I know she survived, but a lot of them didn't.
Huh.
Bill has never been interested in anything in my family, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't really all that driven by this genealogy thing till I started doing it.
Yeah.
And it really,
I know,
to me,
but
I
it
mean,
could be.
obviously, I'm interested in it, but you know, there's that extra little drive that's for
Right.
me. It's like this small project.
Well, yeah, I can see that. Good Lord. Do you have anybody at work that does this type of
Yeah,
stuff?
it turns out because I was doing it a little bit at work, and a couple people walked up and were talking about doing that with their families. And,
Because some of them have ideas and you know, tricks about how you can shorten.
yeah. Well, I was just trying to do the ancestry thing and then flesh it out otherwise, but it goes back really fast radically, and also like certain things like my dad's mom, Velma Schwartz.
Yeah.
That side of the family goes back to like 1500.
Wow, that's
There's
amazing.
the whole Pennsylvania Dutch thing. I mean, it's probably fortunate that they're German
Hmm.
because they're really crazy about keeping records.
Well, that's the way with the Japanese.
Right. So, that said, it's
That's really funny because I
easier
have
to track
I have
back.
2 friends who were both from Germany,
Uh-huh.
and one of them lived in East Berlin, and one of them lived, you know, east of the wall, and one of them lived west of the wall when they were born. And the one east of the wall said the communists destroyed
Right.
so many of the records that they couldn't find anything, you know.
Right.
Well,
Well,
my
a lot of them are based in like they're like
church records,
church stuff,
yes.
baptisms, all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So I could see where the communist stuff
Yeah.
would be like, okay, we're gonna try
Right.
to get rid of religion and. or,
Well, you know, my
get away
mother-
from
My mother, I have the birth certificate that has this on the back of the marriage certificate. And the courthouse burned. It was in Chehalis. So all the records went with it. And during the Second World War, my mother couldn't get secret clearance until she had to prove that she was born with the birth certificate and somebody who knew of their own self that she was born.
that. Right.
Yeah, so it was very interesting, you know.
Now, was there any kind of overarching, you know, element of religion at all within
No,
like, growing
no,
up or anything?
no.
I mean, were people like would people go to church at all, or what was the kind of vibe around that?
I always went to a Sunday school, but I had such a questioning mind that they didn't really like me. You know, why was this?
I mean,
Prove it to me. You know, that type of thing for a kid.
But so, I mean, do you think that kind of that personality, like, kind of carried through time?
For me, yes.
Uh huh. Kind of a skeptic, or like
Yeah.
as a.
Well, I wanted it proved to me. Probably that's why I was so interested in sciences.
Uh huh.
You know. But I don't know. Did San Diego State win? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Are you going up to your dad's today?
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave around 4 or 5.
Oh, okay.
So.
So you're not going to stay here? You're going to stay up there?
No, I think I'm just gonna go do an interview with him for a while, probably
Oh.
not this long, and then drive
Home?
home.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Unless I get totally wiped, then I may drive back here, but I'm doubtful of that. I mean, it's already made.
You've
up.
had your fix, your Mexican fix. I can't believe that in LA that you can't find the
Oh, we
equivalents.
do. We went out to Mexican last night. A really good place. It's a guy who used to he used to have a Mazda shop, and now it's like this fancy Mexican restaurant. Right
Used
by
to
the-
have a what shop?
He used to fix Mazdas, and
You're kidding.
yeah, and I got to know the guy, and cause he's super nice, really, really. He's kind of like reminds me of Roseanne's dad,
Oh, really?
like just that kind of a nice mechanic guy. And
Yeah.
so he he didn't sell the property. He was smart. The place is now called Salazar, which was his last name, and they have a like this upscale Mexican restaurant right by the LA River.
Oh, for heaven's
Yeah.
sakes.
And in fact, I got a thing. It shows up on my phone as who, when the credit card runs,
Uh-huh.
and it says Salazar's Auto Repair.
Oh.
Right, but it's a restaurant.
Oh, that's
It's kinda
funny. That's funny.
Yeah. You want to take a break for a minute?
Yeah, I think so. You know.
No, I mean we've done a lot of this here. I'm pretty
We did a lot.
impressed, and it's still recording.